Of all of the applications and utilities that ship with Logic Studio, perhaps Compressor is the best kept secret. For the small number of people that do know about it, most of those assume that it's simply a movie conversion program, i.e. something that can take a particular type of movie file and convert it into something else. And whilst Compressor can certainly do that, it can also have really useful implications and applications, if you like, for music makers as well. And we're going to look at one of those today by looking at batch file processing. What I can do within the settings window within Compressor is to set up a new group or individual sort of components simply by clicking this button here. And within here, what I can then do is to define what this thing is going to be. Now, what I want to do is to set up a batch file processor for MP3s. In other words, what I'm going to do is to take a whole series of AIF files and convert them into MP3 in a single stroke. So I'm going to set up an untitled MP3 object here, and this is going to create the conversion that we want for us. So what I'm going to do is to give this a name, first of all, here in this top little inspector pane, and what I'm looking to do here is to create a little setting for high quality MP3s. So that's the name that I'm going to go for here. Now, underneath the main naming window, there are a whole series of encoder buttons, and this is where I can make various changes to the settings depending on the thing that I'm looking to do. So there are settings here for movies and for audio and for all sorts of things. But we're interested in the MP3 file format. You can see that I can change the format here if I want to, but within this MP3 settings format, what I can do is to choose the bitrate. I can decide whether I want to use a variable bitrate encoding. I can choose the sample rate and so on and so forth. So here I'm making all of the settings that I want for my high quality MP3. And when I'm happy, I can hit save, and that's then done. So I'm then in a position to close the inspector window, and I've now got my settings fixed. Now, the really clever part of Compressor is what I can then do is to save these settings as what's called a droplet using this little button here. And what a droplet is a tiny little icon effectively within a folder of my choice. So I can save my settings to create this little icon, and then any files that I want to convert with those settings I can simply just drag and drop onto that droplet setting. So once I've saved my droplet, what I can then do is to switch. I'm going to go into the Finder to go and find the page where I've saved my droplet, and you can see it sitting there. I've got an AIFs folder, I've got a high quality MP3 droplet, there it is, and I've got a target MP3s folder as well. Now, when I double click on my droplet, you can see that I get a little window at the bottom telling me that it's just initializing, and then when it's finished it will open up. And here indeed is my droplet showing me all of the settings that I made within Compressor in the first place. So how do I then convert files using these settings? Well, that's pretty straightforward as well. What I'm going to do first of all is to open up my AIFs, which are in this folder over here. And there they are. Now, it makes more sense actually to be able to drop these into the droplet by just changing the view within here so that I can then open up my AIFs folder and see my droplet at the same time. And as I select all three of these and simply drop them onto the droplet, you can see the droplet highlights, and up comes my droplet inspector, and you can see the three source files which I'm going to batch process right now. They've just been imported. And the moment I press the submit button, what happens straight away is the conversion process begins. Now, that launches this batch monitor, which allows me to keep tabs on the conversion process, but I don't actually need to be able to see this. Instead, what I've done is I've closed it and moved it out of the way, and you can see these MP3s are arriving now. 2 are here already, and there is the third. So in the background, if you like, the droplet has gone to work on those files to create my high-quality MP3s at a single stroke. And it wouldn't matter if my AIFs folder contained 200 AIF files. What the droplet would do would be to simply just batch process the lot, one after another. So I can go off and make a cup of tea whilst my computer creates the MP3s that I want. So Compressor is great for creating droplets, which in turn can then batch process any files you like within the movie or audio worlds.